thank you for joining us here today. My name is Bruce Gordon. I'm the Director of Communications for the Department of Public Safety. Thanks for joining us here at the BCA and then also around the state of Minnesota via our live stream. We're here today to announce that a murder victim has been identified as a result of the BCA's effort to learn the identities of Minnesota's unidentified human remains. You'll hear from 3 speakers today. First, Drew Evans, the Assistant Superintendent of the BCA. Then BCA Forensic Science Services Director Catherine Knutson, followed by Faribault County Sheriff Michael Gormley. Drew Evans.
Good morning. As Bruce noted, my name is Drew Evans. I'm the Assistant Superintendent here at the BCA. We're here today to announce that Michelle Busha was 18 years old when she disappeared from her family's home in Texas. For the past 35 years, her family has not known where she was or what happened to her, and for the past 3.5 decades, on May 30th, 1980. Her killer confessed to the crime 9 years later. He's in prison now for that crime and others, but investigators had been unable to determine the victim's identity, and her body was interred at the Riverside Cemetery in Blue Earth, Minnesota. Last fall, as part of our ongoing efforts to learn the identities of Minnesota's missing and unidentified human remains, the BCA worked with the Faribault County Sheriff's Office and other community members to exhume the victim's body. Since then, the BCA has coordinated a series of scientific tests and other methods to try to identify her. Those steps including repeated efforts to obtain enough DNA from her remains to help identify her. And this month we were successful.
To the family and friends of Michelle Busha. Although we now have some answers after 35 years of waiting, I'm certain that this is not the conclusion that they were hoping for. As Assistant Superintendent Evans mentioned, the BCA laboratory did this several years ago. Ms. Busha's family's decision to come forward all those years ago to provide samples was key. We wouldn't be sending her home otherwise. After all these years, she would still be Faribault County's Jane Doe. The BCA's dedication to the missing and unidentified of Minnesota has allowed us to develop specialized testing techniques for some of the most difficult cases such as this one. Although it was ultimately a DNA match that brought us to this point, this match could not have happened without all the hard work and dedication of every agency and individual who has been involved over the years. Now I'd like to introduce the Faribault County Sheriff Michael Gormley to say a few words.
Good morning. Solving of this crime was important not only to the community, but most importantly to find the name to Miss Michelle Busha's identity. The Faribault County Sheriff's Office and other community resources have sought this information for decades. This ongoing commitment to this young woman's identity by so many other agencies and individuals is why we are standing here today. Michelle's family has experienced a terrible loss, but they now have answers about what has happened to their daughter. Our next step in this process is to make arrangements for Michelle's remains to be taken back to her family. That is what will happen in the next few days ahead. Her family has asked us to let you know that they wish for privacy during this hard time. Thank you.
Just as a closing, the BCA wants to note that we're committed to assisting our local agencies and their communities that they serve throughout Minnesota to help identify the missing and unidentified remains in those communities and to give their families the information that they're always seeking, what happened to them. We would like to ask everybody that if for families of missing persons that they contact the BCA and their local communities as well to provide DNA samples to us. As Catherine Knutson noted, it is absolutely key for us identifying these unidentified remains in the state of Minnesota so that we can give families answers like we did in this case to help them understand what happened to their loved ones. With your help, we can try to answer these questions and bring the family members of the ones that are looking for answers home, which is where they belong. And so as Bruce noted, we'll open it up for any questions you may have at this time. None? Her first name is Michelle, M-I-C-H-E-L-L-E, and her last name, Busha, is B-U-S-H-A. BSHA. She was assaulted at the time, and she was strangled with a cord from her hood. So I don't know that we want to speculate on the exact motive, but she was assaulted during this murder. Well, the medical examiner could answer some of the more specifics, but through the investigation, we believe she was.
If we can do this in layman's terms without getting too much size, what actually was it of her remains that you were able to do? Is it simple or is it more complex?
It's actually quite simple. As we stated earlier, we had to exhume her remains in order to get a sample to do the DNA testing. Early on, we were able to do a certain type of testing on a blood stain that we had retained from the beginning, from the initial investigation. We were able to do mitochondrial DNA testing on that. That is a testing that's very useful in linking family members together. It's maternally inherited. But in order to get the more informative form of DNA, which is the nuclear DNA, it's inherited by both family members, both mom and dad. It was necessary to obtain another sample, and we were able to get that information from the skeletal remains that were obtained from the exhumation.
We do not believe they knew each other at the time, but, only the two of them would know that, but we do not believe they knew each other at the time. The man that's in jail already, he was convicted for this crime. So as we noted, and part of this is what we're announcing today, is that we don't give up on identifying to answer for the family members, what happened to their loved ones. So he's convicted of that crime and other crimes and is serving time in Texas currently. According to the information he provided to us, she was hitchhiking at the time. Do you have the specific name?
The state trooper's name was Robert Lease, but they were glad to know that they do know where she's at now, so they can have some closure. They did not know where she was at. They were surprised that she was up here. So.
Is this a case that kind of haunted Faribault County, or have always in the back of your mind?
Well, this is a case of not who done it, but who was she. So we finally got those answers now, and with the technology that they've used, and it was a very good ending for the family to at least know that they found her.
Any more questions? Stop there.
I'm sorry, can you just talk a little bit again about why it took so long, and what exactly led to it? And then is there a plea that you're trying to make to other families of missing people? I thought I understood something about that.
So the BCA, through all of our investigations and then our forensic science laboratory, every time that we have advances in technology, we re-examine these cold cases and unidentified remains cases. And the plea that we continue to make is if that families have missing family members, that they contact us so that we can get samples of their DNA to use to compare when we do these examinations in our laboratory.
Numbers are we talking about in this situation in the state?
Of unidentified remains, is that what you're asking? I'll find the specific.
I think we estimate right now that there's about 50 to 60 unidentified remains cases currently in the state of Minnesota. The majority of those, we do have DNA information. Some of them we do not, just due to the difficulty in obtaining some of this information. And there are a handful of unidentified individuals who were interred prior to DNA technology, and we are currently looking into options on getting the information from those individuals so that we can test them as well.